Welcome back everyone to the next episode of the GachaCast. Today we're going to be talking about a few different things, looking at Genshin Impact as well as Honkai Star Rail, looking at Genshin, looking at some of the new event stuff, even the new Endgame mode that we've gotten in-game, and even talking about a brand new character with some new weapons. Star Rail, on the other hand, we have a brand new Endgame that's dropped. We were finally let know about the banners, so let's go ahead and talk about everything to talk about with these gachas in the past week. Also, like normal, it is Vixen here, and I am joined with Rift. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right into what we're going to be talking about. We have a brand new event that has dropped recently, and that event is going to be the Battle of Imagined Arrays. Now, there are two different types of game modes, or I guess mini games, Rift, inside of this. And the first is going to be the Companion Caper event, or which is kind of like TFT. If you guys don't know what that is, that's Teamfight Tactics. It's kind of like you have a bunch of enemies that are on the field, and then you need to put your own kind of fungi or different stuff like that. So you're fighting with monsters or I guess enemies in the game, and you're fighting yours against theirs, and you're using certain ones to fight the others, and you're kind of placing them down using healers, using attackers. We've had something similar to this before. This definitely shows a little bit more something like Teamfight Tactics more. The other one is kind of like a weird version of Candy Crush. You kind of have a Paimon in the middle, and you need to hold onto Paimon and then go and connect all of the same color. So let's say there's a bunch of henna berries right on the screen. You kind of need to diagonally or correctly kind of draw a line and collect all of them, and you're trying to gain a certain amount of them, so they all have to be connected to an extent. So it's a little bit of an interesting game as well inside both of these. I guess we could just jump right in to show you kind of what it looks like. But yeah, these are the types of stuff that's going on right now. Just some, I guess, fun, interesting things. That's the very least, I guess, that's going on here.
You said grab Paimon. What does that look like?
This is what this looks like. So you're kind of doing this. So this is the idea, right? So this would be grabbing 5 of them. But
it's like you're drawing her path.
Yeah, exactly. So you're kind of it, and if you try to grab the other, I'm trying to move, but obviously you can't jump and grab anything else. But if I start to just follow this line, I'm just holding my mouse button for PlayStation and whatever else. It might be a little different, but that's the idea, right? And then you hit go, and she grabs everything. So you can move diagonally.
I wish I could do this in the overworld. Just, all right, Paimon, go get me the scarabs. Paimon, go get.
Yeah, literally.
Make yourself useful for once.
For once, literally, yes. But yeah, you're just trying to do interesting cool things, I guess, and just try to go away.
Okay, that actually is kind of fun, not gonna lie.
Yeah, but if you guys want as well, grabbing this little thing changes. So if you go here and you grab a green, if you immediately go grab this little guy afterwards, you can jump and grab any of the different colors after that. But then you have to stay with that. You have to stay with that color again. So that's at least how that works. Once again, that's just how the game mode works a little bit. Kind of a fun little interesting thing. And then obviously the Companion Caper Chronicles. We've had a lot of different events like this in the past. And it's it's usually always maybe something more that's usually always Sumeru. Usually, for some odd reason, it's just been Sumeru themed.
They're like, hey, the fungi thing works really well ever since we first started that with I think it was a Yaimiko Layla event. I don't know. Those are the characters I remember. And ever since that event, they're like, man, this is actually doing pretty well. People like this. Let's keep rolling it out. So I guess that's maybe why, because it's easy with the fungi models. Maybe, I don't know. But yeah, you're right. It's definitely always the fungi stuff or whatever.
Do those in-game prices have you down? Well, don't worry, Lootbar has your back. Lootbar is the go-to top-up service for many gamers around the world. You can enjoy instant delivery within just minutes of your purchase, if not even seconds, a secure transaction which is 100% safe, and part of that is because they don't require emails or passwords. All they need for, let's just say, Genshin Impact is your UID. And they don't just cover Genshin Impact, but many other games, as you can see here on my screen. You can do Honkai Star Rail, Zenless Zone Zero, Wuthering Waves, and just many other games. And the best part of all this is that new users get 10% off their first purchase. Click the link down in the description or pinned comment to start saving today. Now, let's get back to the content.
And, whatever, I think the biggest thing, honestly, with this, though, is people are just happy to grab another Sethos, whether that be their first or, constellations. So that's probably the biggest reason to even play this specific event. It's not that long, actually. I was kind of surprised. It's only a 2-week long event, so it's a little bit on the smaller end as well. Usually these types of events usually go for the entire 30-40 days. So that was kind of interesting to see.
Yeah, especially when they have like multiple mini games or whatever. But yeah, so definitely, make sure you do that within 2 weeks from now, so you get that free Sethos, because like you said, that's definitely the highlight here. It is awesome for people who don't have Sethos to actually get him, and he's pretty fun to play, or just get a constellation, because I think he has some pretty good constellations too.
Yeah, at least at the very least, once again, Imaginarium Theater is always the thing that even still nowadays is the idea. Like, try to get as many characters built and make your account
just
a little bit
having another
more
candidate.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of following vertical investment as much as that is a good idea, especially with some other things coming out, you want to make sure you're horizontally invested. And speaking of vertical investment, or new endgame at the very least, we have a brand new type of endgame that they've dropped in the event tab, in our notices tab. So we have our brand new Stygian Onslaught event. So this is going to be most likely something that's going to be happening kind of like another type of endgame. So just like Imaginarium Theater, just like the Spiral Abyss, this is kind of what's going to be happening here. There's a lot to kind of go on here. I mean, Rift, if you want to kind of
I think this actually, doesn't this start on June 25th? This is like starting in literally the next weekly phase, which is crazy. I think at the very top it said that. I'm not sure. What did it say there?
Yeah, it's starting the 25th.
Yeah, June 25th.
Which for us is like a few days, but when this video goes out, it's probably the day of. If not, it's already out.
Yeah.
So that's at least something to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's actually a lot sooner than I thought. I just now thought about that. But yeah, like looking into this, I mean, new endgame. This is something that's been talked about in general circles in the community for a while now, and here it finally is. But like looking first at like what it actually is in the event details. So you have a challenge gameplay, right? This is what it actually looks like for gameplay. You got to select a difficulty, of course, and then after you enter the challenge, you're going to complete 3 phases for a total of 3 time-limited battles. So like we've said, and like a lot of people have been saying for a long time, it looks like it's going to be something like fighting 3 bosses, maybe something like a boss rush, and you have 3 different teams for that. And then the challenge is considered complete once all opponents in all 3 battles are beaten. Once again, difficulties. There's actually a lot of different difficulties. You got normal, advancing, hard, menacing, fearless, and dire. The higher the initial difficulty selected, the more restrictive the rules applied during the challenge, and the tougher enemies will be. From the hard difficulty onward, or the third option, you can only unlock the next difficulty by clearing the current one. Now, there's also this mechanic with characters being highlighted and called Exalted Ones. There can only be a maximum of 16 Exalted Ones at any one time during the challenge, and Exalted Ones will obtain buff effects. Adding them to your party will help you complete the challenge. Once again, a maximum of 16 of these guys at any one time during the challenge. Their number is subject to change, so maybe more than 16, maybe less than 16, maybe that's based on the difficulty. Probably less, I would imagine, because then once you get to the dire difficulty, Exalted Ones no longer obtain buff effects. So kind of just stopping right here, kind of reminds us actually both of Imaginarium Theater, where you have like the special characters they want you to use, maybe the the starting cast of the bonus characters, the special guests, I guess is what I'm trying to say, and then you also have your characters that you can choose, something like that. But then kind of also reminds me of Spiral Abyss, where up until floor 12 in the Abyss, you have leyline disorders that kind of help you out, give you some buffs. But then on floor 12, at least it used to be this way, you wouldn't have any disorder. Nowadays, we actually still do, I think, because like right now it's first half, if you have 0 energy, you deal more damage. In the second half, if you do normal attack cryo damage, you do more damage. So I guess it is a little different now, and it probably has to do with the fact that there's more HP inflation. That's kind of another topic. But it kind of does remind me of that, where once you do actually get to the hardest difficulty here, this Exalted Ones kind of idea is going to go out the window as kind of another way to make it harder, adding difficulty to it, I imagine. But I don't know. What do you think of that, Vixen? What do you think Exalted Ones is going to look like, maybe?
I mean, I think, once again, it still reminds me of the Imaginarium Theater, because that was the first thing that popped into my mind. Because even still with the Imaginarium Theater, you still have the idea of, those characters that are chosen still have like an HP, an attack, and a defense buff. And I don't know if they get an EM buff or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure, I think it's just those 3. They get like a buff basically on their initial stats, which obviously for those characters, whether they're based off attack, HP, or defense, is going to be helpful. And even if they're not, it helps either with their attack or it helps with their defense to be a little bit stronger, to take hits a little bit easier, or just have higher HP to not die as quick. Either way, whether it helps with damage or defense, that's the idea. And so I can still see how that is still kind of being here. But whereas those characters have that buff the entire time, like you said, it does cut off at the very highest difficulty, which is kind of the whole point of this specific one. You know, we talked about, you know, when Bennett was around, obviously, Bennett was kind of like, you know, oh, well, Spiral Abyss, I can only use Bennett on one side. And then we started to get other characters, like Yansan, like some other characters that are attack buffing characters that were kind of maybe not taking his place, but being something that you could use. And just as soon as we get a character like Yansan to kind of take Bennett's place or help in certain instances, like some of the teams that might want just an attack buffer, or even teams that don't, like a Nilu Bloom or something like that, where it's like, oh, I have one team that can have Bennett, one team that works, you know, outside of him a little bit easier, then I can, you know, kind of run 2 teams. Now they want you to run 3 separate teams as well. So it's going to be very interesting how people's accounts are going to change now, and especially with this type of endgame, it's definitely focusing more on people that have been playing the game a lot longer. So it's gonna be a little bit harder, you know, because people, especially if they've only focused into 1 or 2 teams, now they really have to start thinking about adding a 3rd team, adding a 3rd DPS, some supports, you know, characters like Farina, Yelan, you know, characters and whatever. Shilonen, they can only be on 1 team. So now they have to think as well about the supports just as much as the DPSs. So it's going to make a lot more people be a little bit more elongated in their kind of thinking on how to play the game.
Right. Kind of reminds me of Deadly Assault from Zenless, where you have to fight 3 different bosses, but once you've used a certain 3 of those characters to fight your first boss, you can't use them again on the 2nd or 3rd boss, and it works the other way around, however you mix it up. The point is you have to have 9 unique characters separately built, everything like that, and they all work in their own teams. So once you use Astra Yao on one of those teams, you can't use her for the other 2. So that's the kind of hard part about Deadly Assault, at least in Zenless. And so it kind of reminds me here, it's a boss rush in Zenless. For those who don't play Zenless, it's kind of like, that's what I'm seeing here. So you're going to have 3 different teams, 3 teams of 4, you know, and I would bet that once you use a certain character, like let's say you use Mawika for one of the bosses, you can't use her again for those other 2 phases. So that's going to, you know, be something, once again, to just really think about. And that's nothing like new or anything. I mean, Spiral Abyss is the same way. If you use Mawika in the first half, you can't use her in the second half. But with 3 teams, you're gonna have to think a little bit more than when it's just 2 teams with Abyss. So it's gonna be a lot of fun though. But we also have this other mechanic, Vixen, called Disturbance Outbreak, which this looks pretty cool. I guess I'll start it out. It says, in the first 10 days from when the challenge is available, the leyline disturbance will be in an outbreak state. During the disturbance outbreak, players with adventure rank 45 and above can challenge stages at the hard difficulty onwards. That's just the 3rd difficulty onwards out of, I think, like the 6 or 7. And upon completing them, you can consume resin to earn the rewards from their chosen domains of blessing, while also accumulating dire prestige. So basically, you get to claim any artifacts you really want that exist in the game, which is pretty dang cool, I'm not gonna lie. But also, Vixen, what is dire prestige?
Well, it says with Dire Prestige, afterwards you can accumulate a certain amount of Dire Prestige to receive extra artifact rewards and Dust of Enlightenment. Now, Dust of Enlightenment is a fairly new thing that we've gotten recently. It's the feather that you see actually at the top of kind of this thing right here. This little feather.
Yeah.
You guys have seen this feather probably before. That feather is going to help you change your substats for certain pieces if you've gotten them. We've already had something like this with Star Rail. If you guys play Star Rail as well, you kind of understand what that is. If you don't, totally fine. Basically, the idea is with the substats, you can change whatever they've rolled into. So let's say you have a level 20 piece and it's double crit, attack percent, and flat defense, and your piece decided to go all into flat defense. So this allows you to then choose 2 substats that it is guaranteed to reroll into, and then the other 2 stats that are rolled into, or 3 stats or whatever, is just going to be kind of up in the wind on where it goes. But those 2, it's at least guaranteed to go into the ones that you choose. So you could choose crit rate and crit damage of the double crit, and then, you know, the other 2 or 3, you know, substat levels that it would have gone into, it kind of randomizes. So in this instance, it kind of allows you to once again re-roll that piece. Now, if it decides to roll worse than it initially did, then you can still keep your original piece. Once again, same thing that we've seen in Star Rail. So that's at least something that we get to see nice with the Dust of Enlightenment, getting at least something else like that, but it's also getting those extra artifact rewards. The thing to keep in mind here is that as Rift kind of already went over, it's the first 10 days from when the challenge is available. So make sure you guys are actually doing it ahead of time, and that's probably more, probably told to me more than ever, because I usually like to just wait as long as physically possible to do any of the endgame content, unless I'm, you know, doing it for other reasons, like I'm trying to show gameplay or something like that. I'll usually just burn right through everything and go right to floor 12 to just show gameplay. But even still, this past time, it took me like almost 2 weeks until I got into, I had done already 12-1, but I just didn't even care to do 12-2 and 3 until
yeah, because
later.
you did, I guess, like you're saying, you did 12-1 just for like, you know,
just to showcase
content or coverage or whatever, and be like, okay, this is how this works with Skirk or whatever, you know. Which I like to do as well.
Kind of
so playground.
It's the exact same
hey,
thing.
You've got like 3 days. Have you done your abyss? Oh, yeah.
The last time the Imagineering Theater was out, I think I had like less than 14 hours, and so I had to like,
oh yeah,
let's do this. I mean, that was plenty of time to do it. I mean, but yeah, anyways, make sure you guys are doing that in the first little while. Don't do what I do, and hopefully I'll learn my lesson and actually do it ahead of time. This is probably Hoyo, you know, punishing me for doing that. But the next thing we have also is after the disturbance outbreak ends, players will not be able to consume resins to claim rewards from their selected domains of blessing. Keep that in mind. Once again, you can't use that resin anymore to select this anymore. So once again, that first 10 days, you can't use it anymore. The next thing we have is completing a more difficult challenge will also let you obtain the rewards from the difficulties below that one. So once again, same thing we've seen in Star Rail, same thing I believe you have in Zenless if you've cleared to a certain point in the past, and even the same thing that we have in Genshin, even here with the Spiral Abyss. If you've cleared 12-3, if you've cleared all the other stars and all the other games, it'll bring you up to a certain normal point. For instance, in Genshin, you are brought back to floor 11 instead of having to do 9 and 10. It just automatically gives you the rewards. So here, same thing. If you get to that certain point, it will allow you to collect all the rewards of the difficulties below that one. Hopefully it'll kind of chain effect and be like that in the future for the next one. But at least for this one, if you can start on a certain level, all the rewards below it will be given to you as well. It states that the rewards for fearless and dire difficulties can only be obtained upon completing the single player challenge. That comes in a minute. So we have the co-op mode. I cannot scroll any further, so I might just take a screenshot of this and plaster it above our faces, which, oh well, too bad, too sad for us. What it says here is all difficulty levels support co-op mode of up to 4 players. So every single one you can co-op, but it comes with a catch. The normal, advancing, and hard difficulties support matchmaking or co-op mode within the same world. But the menacing, fearless, and dire difficulties only support co-op mode challenges within the same world. Okay, cool, totally fair, totally awesome. Once again, going back to the reward thing of that red that you see right at the top, it says rewards for fearless and dire difficulties can only be claimed upon completing the single player challenge. I just tripped up on my words so much, but either way, the idea is even though you do the top 2 actual like levels, those levels can only be claimed with the rewards when you're doing them yourself, not with the help of a friend. So if you have a C6 friend, yes, they can do it for fun stuff and help you out a little bit to just get it done, but you won't be able to claim any rewards because you yourself didn't achieve it, basically. So can't get carried.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, I would actually have been surprised, like, wow, you can actually just co-op. So like, basically you could be a new player and be like adventuring. You just got to adventure rank 45, so you're just now eligible, barely, and you just be like, all right, guys, assemble. I need you. Like, I need my C6 friends. Just have 3 C6 friends, and you're level 70. Assemble, you know, your level 70 gene that you lost your 50/50 on trying to get your first 5-star. Just, guys, I need help here. So it makes sense. I mean, it is endgame content, so it's kind of a test for you know, your account specifically. And I'm sure once this is out, it's going to be pretty fun for us and also like a lot of other creators to have just something new to actually cover. Like, okay, so we've got the new Stygian Onslaught. Here are some of the best characters, the best teams for this. Here's some tips on like how I did it. Now here's some different variations on how you can do it. Because I imagine with 3 teams for this, there's going to be a lot of just more nuance on how you actually can build teams to get it done, because maybe sometimes based on your account's investment and how long you've been playing, you won't always be able to use a said character's best in slot team. Like, yeah, you want to use Malwika's Melt team with Shalon and Sitlali and Bennett, but if based on maybe you've only been playing for a little amount of time and you have Shalon, but you're like, man, I my other teams don't really have something that's even viable. Like, I need Shalon for this other team because Malwika can get away without using her because Malwika's really powerful. So I can't use Malwika's best in slot because this other team needs help. So there's going to be different ways and you know, things that you can do. So I'm excited for this. I really like the combat gameplay in Genshin, so I can't wait for this. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
It's going to allow a little bit more. It's kind of tying in. We've always said that like Spiral Abyss is all about vertical investment, grabbing more constellations, grabbing the best of the best characters. Imaginarium Theater is more, yeah, you have some of those best of the best characters, but honestly, it's more horizontal investment. So just the more characters you have, the better you have for you, because of the more kind of like buffs that you get, the more characters you have built. So the ones that are better than the trial characters you're given, it just allows for a lot more for you.
You have more
this,
options,
on the other hand,
and that's
is
really
kind
good
of like
there.
yeah. Whereas this is kind of like a mix of both. It's kind of like we want you to be vertically invested and have the strength to actually beat these bosses. I believe the time limit, from what I've seen so far, this is just from what I've seen, is about 2 minutes. So you have 2 minutes to kill each boss, or unalive each boss, however you want to say it. And that's kind of the idea here, right? Is that you have a time limit, but it could, you still want to kind of clear stuff content fast. So it's not like you can kind of just sit there for 10 minutes and just slowly chip away at something with kind of a nothing team. You actually kind of have to do something strong. So, which is why I think they have so many different levels for capabilities of fighting enemies, and, having the certain levels and having the different difficulties, because it's just so much to do.
So do you think you actually have to, unalive the boss, as you said, or put the, let's put the Yumkasaur King to sleep, guys, do you think you actually have to kill them, or is it more like they have many health bars, and it's more like how far can you get, kind of going back to that one event we had?
I don't think that it's going to be like that. And the only reason I say that is because it's not mentioned here. If they had said something like that, if it had said something like, you have to do this, it's a new mechanic like that, or an old mechanic that they're bringing back, besides just deleting a health bar, they would just let us know, like, okay, you have to do they would say you have to get through a certain amount of HP bars, or a certain amount, whatever they would want to call it, a certain amount of levels up through the boss, to therefore
but because they don't really elaborate on that, the only thing they kind of go into as far as what the challenge itself is complete the challenge. Exactly. We don't know what the challenge is. It doesn't even state that it's specifically a boss rush. It says once you defeat the enemies. So maybe based on defeating enemies, maybe that is actually killing a boss, if it is indeed a boss rush, but that's what we think it is. I don't know. It was just a thought, because that event we had a while back, I felt like maybe was either a kind of sneak peek into the new endgame content. I know a lot of people kind of brought that up, because I don't know. I personally had a lot of fun with that, even though you're not actually killing the boss unless you're just friggin' C6 entire team and you're built different, because it's like literally like 9,999 health bars. It was just more of a way to see how far you can get, and I still had fun with that, because I don't know, it's just really fun. And I think that's also what Deadly Assault is. If you have a cracked account, you can kill the boss, but you don't have to. You just got to meet the quota of points, more or less. So it made me think about this for this content. So I don't know, I would be happy either way.
It's at least something to think about at the very least. So that's at least something to keep in mind. Now we're going to be jumping a little bit later, and now that we've talked about the things in game, this is now going into our segment, kind of looking at our interact posts. If you guys kind of remember that a little bit as well, we're going to be talking about some new future releases, pre-release stuff, some what we call kind of like leak content as well. So if you guys don't want to know this, go ahead and jump to the next little bit later, either getting into our Star Rail content or whatever, just kind of getting beyond this little segment here using the timestamps down below. But getting into our next brand new character we're going to be getting, it is going to be Ineffa. Now, Ineffa came out like a week ago when we actually kind of were putting out our last video, but we had recorded already, so we felt it was fine to kind of throw it in here. Robot Girl, if you guys haven't already seen her, that's what she basically does. A lot of people call her Vacuum Lady. She does have that.
That's what I see. Iron Woman.
Looking a little bit into kind of this idea of Ineffa, she is going to be a polearm character. She's going to be an electro character, and she ascends into crit rate. Her weapon goes in crit damage, allowing for that little bit of a combo there that they do together. Looking at kind of her skills though, kind of jumping right into it, she is going to have kind of nothing really going on with her normal attack. So looking at her skill, Cleaning Mode, Carrier Frequency. It states that Ineffa engages her enhanced cleaning module, dealing a single instance of AoE electro damage to nearby opponents, activating her Optical Flow Shield Barrier, and summoning the multi-purpose Smart Assistance unit, Bagurda. No clue if I'm saying that right, if that's Brigitte, I have no clue. But the optical flow shield barrier absorbs damage based on Ineffa's attack, and it will absorb electro damage with 250% effectiveness like we normally see with other types of elemental shields. So she does, at level 10, the modifiers for the initial skill damage isn't really that high, it's at like 155 or 156, but the shield damage absorption's actually pretty good based off of attack and based off modifiers. Her shield's maybe not perfect, but her shield's pretty good right now in terms of what we have. The shield duration is for 20 seconds, so either it breaks or, obviously the duration goes out at 20 seconds. But we do have a little bit of a higher damage hit with this extra smart assistance unit kind of going out and being used, kind of like an Oz, for instance. And this discharge is going to be a 230% of its damage. So it does attack, it looks like, off field as well, allowing that duration is also 20 seconds. The cooldown of the skill is 16 seconds, so you actually have like a 4-second like uptime rather than a downtime. So you have like an extra 4 seconds to still use this even while the thing is still up and going around. And the shield as well.
Yeah.
So if your shield breaks, sooner than the 20 seconds, but you at least have that.
That is a great skill. Like, yeah, you already just looking at forgetting like even multipliers or damage, whatever, like it's already a great skill on paper just because, like you said, I mean, you have no downtime with this. You have extra time to, reapply her skill. And with a long duration, like 20 seconds on both the damage and the shield itself, that's awesome. Because like a comparison being Zhongli or something, his shield lasts 20 seconds too and has, no downtime because you can always come back and, do his hold skill again. Effectively having a shield 100% of the time as long as you're actually, tanking the damage and it doesn't break or something like that. So yeah, she looks really good, and we haven't even looked at the burst yet. And knowing that she's also kind of a sub DPS, ascending into crit rate, like you said, her weapon we'll look at in a minute being crit damage, that already tells you that she's an off-field damage dealer. So for what it looks like, I guess electro charge teams, and we may even get into that, she's already looking like a great unit because she's going to be that kind of also damage dealer. She's not just supporting the team, she's also dealing some of the team's damage, kind of reminding me of, just characters like Emily, Chiori, Escoffier now, an older one, Yaimiko. She's an off-field DPS, sub-DPS for the team, and that's the way she's supporting. She's doing supportive damage. So I really like this already.
I think it's going to be very interesting because if you look at somebody like, and just too quickly before we get into the burst, I mean, looking at her specific damage, now she's a 5-star, she's going to have higher multipliers, but her shielded damage absorption is about 400% at level 10 plus 3,000 something, right? Lanyan's,
which is really good.
If we look at somebody who also does attack, Lanyan's shield is almost 500% with a 2,500 extra bonus bit as well. Now keep in mind, that's about 100% attack difference. At the same time, the base attacks are completely different. If you have a personal weapon, that's even more attack. So it might even itself out to be as strong as a Lanyan shield. Now, Lanyan's shield really comes into play whenever you have one of her constellations that makes it even better whenever you have you're doing normal attacks with the on-field character. But this is still not to say like a terrible like shield here at all. Once again, I think she is damage, and the shield is more or less just like an extra help. But I think with her modifiers and everything, she can still at least have a pretty good shield. Is it going to be absolutely cracked and insane and block everything? I don't think so. But at the same time, I do think that it is kind of nice to see like a pretty good shield.
Yeah,
still
like
here
it's good enough to like you're gonna tank
yeah.
some hits. You will, but it's definitely probably not as strong as Lanyan's or even Zhongli. It might be around Zhongli's level. Just kind of looking at it. We're not theory crafters. We're just kind of just saying what we feel like.
Kind of
we're
up
field
to
crafting right now.
What happens, based on do you have her weapon, the level. Once again, like I said before, she's gonna have higher modifiers than someone, or higher stats than someone like Lanyan. So maybe the difference in the 4 to 5 star, base stats of attack difference, and maybe her personal weapon with a high base stick or something might kind of counteract that vibe a little bit between the two characters. Maybe it doesn't. Either way, that's at least how the modifiers specifically look for that.
Anyways, looking at her burst, this is called Supreme Instruction Cyclonic Exterminator. States that the multi-purpose smart assistance unit, Brigitte, can use rocket punches to quickly clean up opponents. Ineffa is going to shoot Brigitte into the fray, dealing AoE electro damage and allowing Brigitte to remain on the field. So looking at that skill damage, if you have this crown level 10 or whatever, that skill damage looking really, really chonky at 1200%. So that initial AoE electro damage hit upon using the burst is probably going to be really, really good, really nice. And then it has a cooldown of 15 seconds with an energy cost of 60, at least for right now, and where we're at in the speculations. And then also allowing, Brigitte, the off-field summon, to stay on the field. So kind of reminds me, honestly, of Fischl or Kokomi, where their skills summon their, their summon, and then their burst kind of can refresh it. If you're using Kokomi as a support, you still want to use her burst throughout rotation to kind of refresh the jellyfish to keep it on the field. And by using that correctly, you can keep her jellyfish on the field 100% of the time. Fischl, same thing, use your skill and using her burst will refresh Oz's duration, so you can keep Oz on the field throughout rotation. So kind of seems something like that. Now the funny thing is, you don't really need it to refresh Brigitte, just because in the skill already, 20-second duration, and then it has a cooldown of 16 seconds. So you already have 100% uptime with her skill. So the burst is kind of just, if you didn't already use her skill, or you're wanting to save some time, this will get Brigitte on the field without having to use the skill, so you can get right into your damage. Because at that point, your skill would really just be for the shield, because you've already used your burst, and so you already have the off-field damage from Brigitte going now. So maybe if you're saving a second or two from the animation, I know some people like to think about that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's very basic, just dealing some damage, and really that's it. If you've already got the skill going, it's just really just a front-loaded hit, which once again, that modifier looks really good at sitting around 1200%. So shouldn't be disappointing.
And looking beyond the actual burst, we have some of the passives. Now, I'm going to quickly kind of go over these because there's a few things I do want to talk about as well with them. The first passive is Overclocking Circuit. If there are thunderclouds nearby when Brigitte attacks, she will initiate an additional attack dealing damage equal to 80% of Ineffa's attack. This damage is considered lunar charge damage. Now, what this is talking about, lunar charge is a brand new reaction, which I guess we could also talk about a little bit as well. The idea of lunar charged can only happen with certain characters, and this ties into her other passive she has. Her other passive states the Assemblage Hub. When a party member triggers an electrocharged reaction, it will be converted into the lunar charged reaction with every 100 attack that Ineffa has, increasing the lunar charged base damage by 0.7% up to a maximum of 14%. Now, there have been plenty of theory crafters that have talked about this. TGS, I know, has gone over it. I think he's also putting out a video soon as well about this in the future. We have a character, a person like Sejef, who's talked about this in depth as well. So if you want to know more about the ins and outs of how this is calculated, how it's done, go to their videos, understand a little bit more if you're kind of looking for the ins and outs of how this works. From what I've seen, Lunar Charge actually does less damage than Electro Charged. Now you might be saying, okay, whoa, what? Now remember, keep in mind, the Electro Charge got a buff, and I don't know if they've talked about this. Once again, watch their videos. I just saw that they put stuff up. Once again, listen to what they have to say as well. But from what I've seen with Electrocharged, if you remember, got a buff. Certain kind of elements that weren't extremely strong, like Superconduct and stuff like that, and Electrocharge got buffs in this time period. So I think that, like, maybe that difference in damage could be due to that buff that they got, and maybe Lunar Charged is based on the initial damage that they had for Electrocharged before it got its nice little buff. That being said, the Lunar Charge isn't really anything special until you get to this passive that Ineffa does. So this brand new reaction isn't going to be absolutely crazy. It's only going to be good when you have this first passive that, Brigitte is going to go do an extra attack when that thundercloud of Lunar Charge is kind of happening. The idea of kind of Lunar Charge, in a long story short, is Lunar Charge is not better than Electro Charged until you get a character like obviously Ineffa here, who can actually make it better. So if future characters do allow this to be triggered, unless they have something that specifically can buff it like she does with this passive, there's not going to be anything that actually makes it stronger, if that makes any sense. Kind of the idea at least here.
Right. I mean, and like you said, the whole idea may not be lunar charge damage itself, but it's the whole idea that it's giving, allowance to Brigitte to have more damage, kind of like where Fischl does more damage when she's in an Dendro team, because you're doing that reaction over and over and over, and so Oz is like, oh yeah, here's more electro damage based on her second whichever passive, right, her A4 or whatever, where Oz is doing additional damage based on Fischl's attack. So that's kind of what I'm seeing here. Hey, if you're doing Lunar Charge, and it has to be Lunar Charge, you're getting even more damage out of Ineffa's kit. You're doing an extra attack based on her attack. So it kind of reminds me of Fischl in that aspect, where if you use her with a certain team, you're doing more damage. So even if Lunar Charge isn't stellar, that's still a damage increase for her, like you said. So
yeah,
there's also like this other third passive now, called Panoramic Permutation Protocol. It actually might be her second, and the one you read was the third, whatever it is. But that was more important to talk about first, with the uniqueness of Lunar Charge. But looking at this last one, Panoramic Permutation Protocol, it states that after using the Elemental Burst, all nearby party members will gain the Parameter Permutation effect. And that's going to increase Ineffa and your own active party members' elemental mastery by 6% of Ineffa's attack for 20 seconds. That's pretty interesting. That's not like game changing. It's not huge different. That was already the Lunar Charge stuff, but still very, very interesting. So you're increasing your active party member and Ineffa as well, elemental mastery. So that probably will help out some of the Lunar Charge damage itself, because all reactions are stemming out of elemental mastery, so there will be a little bit of a damage increase there. But I don't know, it makes me think of some interesting things, because being an Electro character, is there going to be some really cool team comps that you could do, where obviously you're going to have your Hydro character in here because you want to trigger Electro Charge and then convert it to Lunar Charge through her kit. But what if I just throw Nahida in there, or just a Dendro character, and I go kind of high EM, but while still getting attack, of course, on my Ineffa, and now Ineffa is like doing some hyper blooms here and there as well, especially being an off-field damage dealer. She has some AoE Electro. It might be easy to hit the cores on the ground, so she can actually do that, because obviously that matters. Like a good example of that would be Fischl can hit bloom cores a little bit easier than someone like Beto, because Beto is actually very single target, and that chain damage from her burst is going straight to the enemy. So Beto sometimes has an issue actually reaching bloom cores on the ground. So maybe Ineffa won't have a problem because she's got AoE Electro damage. I don't know, there's just a thought that's coming to my mind based on this passive, but what do you think, Vixen?
Yeah, I think overall, looking at everything, the kind of idea of this is going to change based on a lot of things. There's going to be a future character that'll work really well with her, maybe a Hydro character or something that'll work really well with her, kind of like Kanish and then Emily and then Kanish. I think it's going to be Ineffa and then, some other character, whether that's another Electro character, another Hydro character that'll work together with this aspect. Also, the reason I say that is because there's probably going to be other characters that can, kind of create this reaction as well, or maybe similar types of ideas, like this idea of changing and making a new reaction, if you will. And the reason I say that is because look at the ability or the passive we have here as well in the assemblage hub. It states at the very bottom, after all of this, huge buff that you get for Lunar Charge base damage, you get an increase based off of Ineffa's attack. After all of that, it states further blessings may follow the new moon's rise. Now, I have no clue what that means. And once again, you can talk to theory crafters, you can talk to lore people. I'm not even caught up to Genshin's story yet on the Dainsleif quest, so I am definitely not the person to jump onto this with. But my initial thoughts when I read that is, they're leaving this in the kit so that later on they can add something. They can add, if you pair with any character that does XYZ, this is going to happen as well. And further blessings are going to then trigger because of the new moon's rise. Maybe because of the new moon's rise when we get into Nodcry, maybe something is going to happen in the story, specifically lore-wise. The moon could be cracking open the world.
Like the new mechanic for Nodcry?
A new mechanic. It could be cracking open the world, and maybe there's a moon behind us or something. I don't know. Maybe we see the Star Rail. Maybe we see the Star Rail train back there. I don't know what's going to happen. But the idea here is that this possibly could allow them, and they're kind of throwing it in sneakily here because it's kind of like at the very end of the very last passive, or the second to last passive. So I think that's kind of an interesting little kind of trinket there, just to kind of either get you guys to think as well, and also to get us to think, because now that I think, okay, other characters can do either the same thing and do Lunar Charged, or it's a new mechanic that's going to come in, which could be something similar to Lunar Charged. Maybe there's going to be different reactions like Superconduct, like stuff like that were kind of useless, garbage, like, okay, they did nothing reactions, and maybe they're going to start to have extra little things that happen with new characters. So maybe if they do Superconduct, Electrocharge, blah, 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 there's going to be another buff if you have like multiple of these characters on the same team. So that's my idea, at least, and I'm out in space. I sound like a conspiracy theorist, but that's at least what I see for what this could be talking about.
It's definitely interesting. Like, I saw that too, and I was thinking, what could that mean? Like,
No
but
clue.
maybe the new Nodcry thing, whatever. But as far as some teams go, like maybe like with some current characters that we have, because obviously there might be a 6.0 character that's gonna be like, yep, I was designed to be used with Ineffa. I mean, so like Emily came out first, right, with like 4.8, and then Kanish came out in 5.0, and was like, okay, yeah, you got to use these two together. They're amazing, absolutely fun, awesome, right? And so that might be, the same things happening here. But maybe some like characters now, because of that EM buff for Ineffa and the active character, I was thinking like, oh wait, this would actually be really, really fun with Aoife. And I know we were actually talking about this earlier, because obviously Aoife really likes EM. He's pretty good with Electrocharge specifically. Then you could, throw her in here, just throw Auron in there. You've already got double Electro, Aoife as the driver, and then your flex last slot, whatever that may be, right? Maybe obviously it would have to be a Hydro unit at that point, an outfield Hydro. So maybe like Xingqiu, Yelan, Farina probably just being the best option. And I believe Yelan and Xingqiu would still work with Aoife. I think we remember talking about that, because Aoife is doing normal attacks within his skill while kind of floating around, whereas Mizuki can't use Yelan and Xingqiu because she's just AFK, like floating around. You're not actually doing normal attacks. So like you could use Xingqiu as the budget option there. That would be a pretty fun team, just seeing all the Thunder Clouds, the Electro, Lunar Charge, whatever. That'd be pretty fun. And then also makes me think of Chaska. There's a lot of different things you can do with an Animo driver, because you're increasing EM. That's usually helpful for really any EM driver. Kind of brings me back to the OG Sucrose being a driver for just really any kind of national team, whatever reaction you're doing. Sucrose driving that is just pretty fun. I know early game that was pretty good, really fun, so you can do that too. Hazo even comes to mind. There's a lot of different things. I think with like a Hydro on-fielder though for Ineffa, it makes me wonder about, Neuvillette, because I know a lot of times when Neuvillette released, people liked using Beidou, especially if they had C0. Yaimiko was an excuse to kind of throw in there, get Yaimiko some use again or something like that, just to have some fun with and do an Electrocharge Neuvillette team. Maybe you can do Neuvillette with Ineffa here and Farina and whatever else, Shalonen, and that would be pretty fun. I think the nice thing about Ineffa is that she's not a restrictive character that we saw in like Escoffier, Skirk. They want to be stuck to the freeze teams, and while Ineffa wants to be stuck to Electrocharge, there's still so many options that you can do. And honestly, at this point, does make me wonder about a straight up, Dendro team, because would that be good? She is scaling on her attack, still would be doing electric damage. You're getting the spread and aggravate from that. So, and then the EM buff, is there. I don't know. It just seems pretty interesting. I think there's a lot you could do.
Toss up with this character for sure. There's a lot that I think once we get more information, once more people do more testing, we'll know a lot more overall with her as a character. And speaking of her as a character, we do have her personal weapon, and now usually whenever we made like interact posts or something, we usually talked about the character, and that was kind of it. That's all we really had time for. Now that we're able to just kind of put this into a podcast setting, we can keep talking and not shut up. So we're gonna keep talking and not shut up. The next thing we're gonna talk about is Ineffa's weapon, which is gonna be Fractured Halo. Now looking here at level 90 is gonna give you 608 base attack and the crit damage at 66.2% at level 90. So once again, she ascends into crit rate like normal, 19.2% for the normal crit rate ascension for a level 5-star character, and then we also have crit damage at 66.2% for this weapon, balancing those two things out. Looking at the weapon though, it states that after an elemental skill or elemental burst is used, attack is increased by 24% for 20 seconds. If the equipping character creates a shield while this effect is active, they will gain the electrifying edict effect, and all nearby party members deal 40% more lunar charge damage. Obviously, very good weapon for her. The more lunar charge damage, she already has, remember that passive that increases damage or your lunar charge damage based off her attack. I think it's like the maximum is like 14%, which I think gives you a maximum. It's like starts at 0.7%. It goes to a 14% maximum, which is 2,000 attack that you want to have her at. If my quick math can be somewhat okay. And then also with that though, we now have crit damage. Keep in mind, lunar charge, also something we didn't talk about, can crit. So that's pretty good too.
And maybe that's why
the modifiers aren't high.
It does less than Electrocharge, because Electrocharge won't crit. If this is critting, maybe that's why, based on the initial modifiers, Lunar Charge does less. Because when you consider that, plus Ineffa in the team, and she has her weapon.
Now, looking at the weapon itself, outside of Ineffa, because obviously it's Ineffa's weapon, so it's going to be obviously perfect for her. I do want to state though, looking at polearm specific characters,
That's exactly what I was looking at right now as well.
This states after an elemental skill when an elemental burst is used, you have an attack increase. So I'm looking outside of characters that it's just a stat stick on, because stat sticks are everywhere. Technically, you could throw, once again, another polearm, Staff of Homa is a stat stick for just almost everyone. So yes, after using an elemental skill or elemental burst, which a lot of characters are going to want to do, obviously, whether they go into their damage's normal charge attack, they still use that skill or burst. Either way, getting the extra attack increase is very good, and so that can be very good for a lot of characters. Looking at
attack scaling characters,
right? Attack scaling characters. Looking at those types of characters, you could look at characters like Cyno, Raiden, Xiao, whatever, Arlecchino, Hu Tao, blah 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 blah. The list could go on.
If we're being honest, almost all of them. It's more or less who doesn't scale on attack, and that would basically just be your Kachina. You've got your Mika, who's an HP scaler. Yao Yao's an HP scaler.
Right.
Toma, technically, because his attack is, it's bad.
And you usually just want to go into EM for his for the Virgin teams.
Or just go shield bot.
You have plenty of other characters that can go into it. I mean, technically, even Zhongli, if you want to do damage, like Zhongli, technically could still be even good for him as well.
Technically, yeah.
But
actually,
way,
I think he's a good candidate anyways, because he's one of those shield characters. Because when you look at that second part of the weapon, it's like, okay, if you create a shield, you're gonna give everyone 40% lunar charge damage. So if you use this on Zhongli as a hybrid Zhongli, if he's in that electrocharge team, then that actually does technically work and can be interesting if you happen to get the weapon. And
if you have like a second copy is the only issue I see, because remember that this doesn't trigger unless you have Ineffa in the team. It looks like lunar charge isn't just triggering outside of Ineffa. Ineffa right now is the only person who can trigger it. So even if you put this on Zhongli and he's the only character in the team that can do it, it's not going to really help anything for that shield, and that's the same reason I was going to bring up with some of the other characters. Even if you're creating a shield like Toma or whatever, or
Toma creating a shield, it wouldn't really matter, because are you really using Toma in an Ineffa team? Probably not.
Right.
But
you
only
have
other
two copies of this weapon to do so. That's the other issue.
Exactly. You'd have to get a double win or whatever. And when you look at the only other two candidates that even create shields for polearms, so we had Toma and Zhongli we just talked about. The only other two, right now at least, are Candace and Yunjin. Now, oddly enough, they could still show up in an electro-charged team with Ineffa. Let's say you're using Ayato with Ineffa. Normal attack characters. So Yunjin actually helps out Ayato. If that's just what you have built up, you can use it. Candace also does have a normal attack damage buff. She can also be a driver herself, though. Like you could do DPS Candace with this weapon and also have Ineffa on this weapon. That would look interesting, and just have an electro-charged team with Candace as the driver, and that would technically work, because in DPS Candace, you want to build attack, not HP as much, because all of her scaling is on attack. So that's another, it's pretty niche, because like you said, it has to be a second copy, because any team you have this on another character already, it needs to have Ineffa in the team to even get that second passive. But going back to stat stick, I mean, that's just an attack increase. You've got the crit damage main stat, so like that might be good for Escoffier, Emily, Yansan, all the typical attack people. Shenhe can even use this just for the
There's a lot of units increase. This could just be straight up used for if you accidentally drop the weapon, if you're going for someone else that's tied with her. So if her banners, if you accidentally do get this weapon, you lose the 75-25 or whatever it is, then you could still use this on a lot of other characters. So if it does drop, it does suck that you didn't get your on banner character's weapon that you wanted, but it is, still number one, it's still a good weapon. Once again, you still have a good amount of base deck, crit damage, a pretty good amount, same thing as Staff of Homa basically, and instead now you're getting a 24% attack increase for a very long period of time, by the way. So a character like Cyno, a character like Xiao that can have a long or longer, especially with Cyno, kind of like, burst or damage time, then you actually have
plus he continually uses
buff, because some characters are only max like 8 seconds or something like that. So
yeah. So I think the main scenario, this is what's going to happen with most people, is you're not going for Ineffa, and you're in fact going for the other character in the banner. You get Ineffa's weapon, you're like, okay, what do I do with this? Because if you don't have Ineffa, scratch the whole idea of the second part of the passive on the weapon. It really is just this attack stat stick on your account. So that's the more realistic case, where it's just an extra attack weapon to throw on any of those attack scaling polearm characters, and that's going to be most people. Because putting it on Candace, Yunjin, or Zhongli is when you have a second copy of the weapon, because it always is going to go to Ineffa.
Right, and so that's the thing. It's like either you accidentally get it or you got it and you wanted it. That's really the only two ideals for you. So with that being said, though, outside of looking at that, we also have a 4-star weapon that did drop as well, which is going to be the Flame Forged Insight. Now, this is probably weapon is, I don't know 110%, but I'm going to guess that this is locked behind the wish mechanic, so it's probably going to be on banners, and that's
It's a
probably the
gacha
only way
weapon.
you
It's
can
not like
get
an
it.
event weapon or anything.
It doesn't look like it. Once again, maybe we'll get more information. Maybe it is, but for right now, it doesn't look like it. And this weapon, when
really
I
good.
saw it, I was like, wow, that looks like a really cool weapon for some other characters. Who it actually works for is probably not going to be who I thought it is, or maybe it's going to be good for a future character. I don't know, but let's go ahead and talk about it. So the base deck is going to be at 510 at level 90, and then also the elemental mastery is going to be at 165 at level 90. The ability at R1 states that when an electro charge, lunar charge, or bloom reaction is triggered, you will restore 12 elemental energy and increase elemental mastery by 60 for 15 seconds. This effect can be triggered once every 15 seconds and can be triggered even when the equipping character is off field. Now, when I saw this, yes, it can be used for some other characters that are, can be used maybe in that Electro Charge, Lunar Charge team. So maybe if you're using, a character like the Electro characters like Beto, Razor, or Dory or something like that as the only, because we don't have Hydro Claymores, maybe if you're using a character like that, it could be used in that team. But this does talk about... By the way,
I still think it's crazy we don't have a Hydro Claymore on a completely I know that's a rabbit trail, but like...
we'll get one. That's what I'm hoping for. Maybe this weapon will do it. Maybe this weapon will be it. Maybe the character that's going to work with Ineffa will be a 5-star that works with it. Maybe there's going to be a 4-star that comes along in 6.0, 6.1 that's going to be tied to this weapon and can be good with it as well. Maybe they'll have a similar idea.
A new 4-star that's
Electro
Hydro and just better than Dahlia. Because, man, I think with Dahlia we had high expectations, right? For a new Hydro 4-star character. It just wasn't what we were looking for.
I think that's the problem.
Yeah, it's the restriction. Yeah,
a character like Chevreuse come out. We saw characters like Lanyan come out. We saw,
and they're
even
goated. They're like actually close to meta, if not meta.
Exactly. It's just hurt. It's just like, okay, we kind of got reality slapped in our face. And speaking of reality slapping in our face, a character that I was looking at this. We'll show a picture of it on screen, and if you guys haven't already seen it, and we've already done that, it looks like it's got all this like blue and light blue in it, and so I'm thought initially, okay, cryo character, we're going to Nod Cry, probably that going to be a good idea. Maybe Fremine or Chongyun or something, I don't know, maybe a Eula, maybe they'll throw a physical weapon in there for funsies, I don't know.
Yes, Eula with EM, let's go.
And then I saw the main stat and I was like, okay, well, that goes my idea. Then I looked at the ability and I was like, okay, Electro Charge. So basically they're just forcing us into this weird thing. But thankfully, it does also talk about Bloom as well in this. So Bloom being triggered gives back 12 elemental energy and 60 elemental mastery, just like the other effects, Electro Charge and Lunar Charge. Only person I'm thinking that this weapon, for right now, in my opinion, is going to be thrown on is going to be Kaveh. Extra elemental energy, which is going to help him get his burst back, which is good for him. And then also giving him elemental mastery as well, which is also going to be good for him. So just having it's EM based, it's giving more EM, it's giving him elemental energy, which he wants to use his burst so he can get his infusion, so he can do more bloom course. It's all of this is kind of just leading itself up to a very good Kaveh weapon, which I'm not sure if we have like a very good Kaveh weapon. We probably have some good ones here and there, milled flower, stuff like that. But honestly, this is just
good
a
options,
pretty
but this is
solid
probably
option.
definitively his best. Yeah.
Never mind if you get more refinements. Yeah.
True.
If this is like like you were talking about, maybe if this is an actual weapon that is to be used through events or whatever, if we get like an R5 version of it for free, or if you just, get it, 6 times or 5 times or whatever it is, 5 times on the event, or when you're pulling for Ineffa's weapon, or maybe if you're pulling for the other character's weapon, if you get this 5 times, could also happen. That goes up to 24 elemental energy and 120 elemental mastery, which brings you almost up to 300 elemental mastery after triggering Bloom, which should happen pretty consistently. 24 energy is just a really solid amount, especially for Kaveh. Yeah, because Kaveh is at an 80 energy
He really
cost.
needs it. Because right now, I use the Favonius Claymore on my Kaveh.
Just to get the energy back.
Because he needs the energy, and he does really good. Like, that's used to be Abyss worthy. Now it's not Kaveh's fault. The Abyss is just crazy nowadays, and
it is.
you need the newer some of the newer stuff. but I used to be able to do this with Kaveh. I still can get pretty close, but he's just on Fav for the energy so he can get his burst back. Because when Kaveh doesn't get his burst back, he's completely useless. He's not doing anything. Like, you need his burst. It's just burst reliant character.
Right.
So this weapon will be probably definitively his best, just because you're getting the EM main stat that you actually want while still having the ER help that he needs. So that's going to be really good for him. As far as, like, for me, other characters, there's really only 2, at least at this point in time, you know, disregarding future characters. My other 2 are going to be Beidou and Sayu. I like it on Beidou, especially if you're using Beidou in an Ineffa team.
Right.
It's kind of hard to say, in an Ineffa team. Because you want the lunar charge. You're going to increase the lunar charge. The only thing I don't like about it on Beidou, and maybe this is just me, is the EM main stat. I just prefer a crit main stat for her, or maybe even an ER main stat, but thankfully you're getting ER in the passive. ER is just really good for her.
Right.
Especially because if you like 4-piece emblem, yada, yada, yada. I don't know, Serpent Spine is probably still going to be better, even in that Ineffa team, just because Serpent Spine's just really good for Beidou. It's giving her the crit rates, giving her the extra just damage that she does from off field. So it can work for her, though, is what I'm getting at. So she is a candidate for it. I like it for her still. But I also really like it for Sayu, and I know that's a kind of far-fetched one, just because how many people actually use Sayu. But going back to kind of what I brought up with Ineffa, hey, Aoife as a driver sounds fun. Sucrose, kind of bringing back Sucrose as a driver. Heck, even Hazo and Electric Charge is pretty fun. Who says you can't use Sayu as a driver in an Ineffa team with Ororon and maybe Farina? Sayu on field is a lot of fun if you're forgetting meta. Sayu is just so fun going around just as a friggin' roly-poly or Sonic the Hedgehog on field. And this weapon would be pretty good, giving her the EM main stat. That's really good for Sayu. That's helping her healing. And when you do get constellations, it's helping the damage. She's swirling, you know. EM does a lot for Sayu because she's a healer for the team, and that's the damage for her. And then you are getting everything out of the passive. You're getting the energy to get the burst back to be able to heal the team, even more EM. So I really like this for Sayu, if I'm being honest. It's just that when it comes to meta content, you don't really use Sayu. She's not, like, powerful. But I will definitely be using this on Sayu if I get a copy of this weapon, because it seems like a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely brings a lot of interesting aspects to what we're going to be getting. It's most likely going to be things that we're going to have in the future as well, so it's going to be an interesting weapon to at least have for a few different characters for right now, and hopefully we'll get some more characters it'll be good for in the future. Now, talking about some other new things, the last few things, and then we're going to jump over into Star Rail. The first thing is going to be a Neuvillette Skin that we're looking at, possibly during the Lantern Right time period, to give you a version idea that's probably around 6.3. Looking around that idea, a Neuvillette Skin, which, you know, a newer character. I mean, I say new, you know, he was, you know, a year ago at this point,
like
but
4.1 or something.
Yeah, so it was a year and a half ago. But I mean, at the same time, it's still cool to see like a almost like a big, still prominent character, still kind of get a cool skin, you know, and hopefully we'll get skins more consistently. It seems like we have, but not as maybe as many as we want, and hopefully they'll start doing Archon skins. But you know, we've been crying wolf about that for years. Either way, though,
yeah.
Neuvillette Skin, not sure what they'll do. Maybe it'll be Nodcry focused. Maybe it'll be, you know, because it is during that Lantern Right time period. Maybe it'll be Leeway focused, most likely, like every other Lantern Right skin is, and maybe some other characters will get one. Maybe a brand new 4-star from Leeway is going to appear, because they just seem to come around out the woodwork whenever Lantern Right appears. It's just like, oh yeah, I forgot we had a 4-star
here. Free 4-star.
Yeah. And so maybe it'll be that. And then outside of that, we have the Sumeru Chronicled, which is probably going to be possibly during the 6.1 time period, which that's extremely suspective. We don't know if that's really going to be the case, but it's been thrown out there, and we at least wanted to say something about it. And I know in the last video we accidentally threw, without realizing, Baiju in that that Chronicled
He was in the
Wish.
Leeway Chronicled Wish, yeah. So
yeah,
you can kind of rule that out.
But
so, sorry for that mistake, but that'll be interesting.
It'll be interesting
because we're gonna be bone dry because of 6.0. Everyone, the hype, 6.0, yeah, and then 6.1. Dang it, you know, I still want my Tighnari weapon or whatever you're trying to go for there, right?
Right.
Going back to the Neuvillette Skin, just real quick, it makes me wonder if that's going to be around, you know, 6.3, whatever that, 6.2, 6.4, whatever. That means, would Neuvillette be getting a rerun around that time? I mean, because what are they going to do for the new players that, this skin on this character, you know, looks really cool. I don't have him. I can't get him. Dang it. Like they're going to probably have to rerun Neuvillette in early 6.x. So that, I guess, can be, you know, in the back burner of everyone's mind.
Actually a smart
if we're
point,
getting a skin, we've got to get the character's banner too. Like, that only makes sense.
Right.
So that makes me think of that. And then, obviously, Sumeru Chronicled Wish. I don't know. There's a lot to think about. All of the 6.0 stuff. Ineffa brings up a lot of topics of discussion that we've already talked about for what non-Christ direction may be, whether they're deep diving into electrocharge stuff now with the lunar charge thing, or are we in fact going to get more cryo-specific stuff? Or maybe not, because we already got that with Skirk, and they did that a little bit early. So maybe electrocharge is the new thing, because I also thought about if Neuvillette's getting a skin, okay, his banner may be sometime around then, but also are they trying to push for, once again, electrocharge things, because he is a Hydro character, so they're pushing for, hey, use this character with another, Ineffa, or maybe even a future Electro character, whatever, I don't know, just making all of these things kind of swirl around in my head thinking about that. So I don't know. It'll be fun though. I can't wait to see what the Neuvillette skin actually looks like. Maybe it'll be, I know you said maybe a leeway theme or something else. I even thought about maybe like a more lore kind of focused theme with his like dragon, because he is the Hydro dragon. Maybe it's something like that. I don't know. We'll just have to see.
And now we're going to be talking about the next little bit, which is looking at our Star Rail topics. Now, very quickly going over kind of the necessary but unnecessary almost stuff to an extent. Remember, we've got about 7 days left on most of this type of content. So a lot of the trace and drift thing, we've got obviously do your weekly stuff, but then also the Legend of the Galactic Baseballer as well. A lot of that stuff, as well as Garden of Plenty. Make sure you do all of that and get through it and ready to go. You do have about a week left on that, so make sure you guys are remembering that before the next little bit comes, because these next banners we're going to talk about in a little while you're probably going to need it, and pretty well. Now we're going to go into the Forgotten Hall because the brand new Endgame just dropped for MOC, so the new rotation just dropped, and just like we did with Genshin kind of to an extent, it's the same thing to a similar extent here. Just make sure you guys are keeping in line with kind of the extra like buff that you guys have during the Forgotten Hall. It states that after the ally character in position 1 uses their ultimate, both they and their memory sprite will gain memory imprint, lasting for 1 turn. Damage dealt by targets with memory imprint increases by 40% and adds 2 hits per action to the memory turbulence, up to 10 hits. At the start of each cycle, memory turbulence deals 1 instance of true damage to a random enemy target with each hit per action. So a lot of extra hits. You can kind of see the weaknesses of some of the enemies right here. That might change as you get through, and obviously it'll get harder throughout the higher content. But
right,
at the very least, that's what this is going to look like.
Yeah, Aglaya is the one that comes to my mind first. I know there's other characters that obviously have the, memo sprites and stuff. Aglaya just attacks so often. Her memo sprite attacks a lot, so it's going to be super easy to get the, memory turbulence kind of to the max hits per action. But even if a character doesn't have a memo sprite, it doesn't mean you're getting this, because if they use the ultimate, so like you use an Acheron ultimate, you're going to get that damage increase by 40%. You just may not max out the memory turbulence for every start of each cycle for when it does its true damage, which is different, but what matters the most is that you're obviously, using characters that, just do well against the enemy you're facing, because that makes all the difference if we're being honest. So like in this example here, I know this is just floor 9 or 10 or whatever, but like Castrus will probably be good in that first half, and then maybe Aglaya. We were just talking about Aglaya. Honestly, Cocolia is just she's annoying.
No matter
you know what I mean?
How you play against it. I mean,
usually hyper teams feel pretty good on her.
Last MOC or wherever she was last time, I barely didn't almost complete it because I mean, honestly, also I didn't have
something else, especially in APOC.
Yeah, and I didn't have like the Enax or whatever to actually play against it. But even still, she is probably one of the most annoying bosses to just fight against. If you don't have exactly what you want. So yeah, exactly. And then also the time period before her big ult, it's all...
And then the freeze, and like, great, now I can't even use my character.
Yeah,
I was waiting for that moment,
Unless you have Venturine, which stacks up everybody's effect resistance, but even still, unless she targets him as well, it's not usually guaranteed that you'll, get rid of the effect. It's all too much and annoying, and it's all interesting things at the very least to deal with. So anyways, in a very basic sense, that's at least what you guys are looking forward to for this new upcoming thing. Make sure, once again, do your events. New MOC dropped. Make sure you guys are trying that out. But obviously, new banners coming out also could be very good for some of these new characters that are coming out. And so speaking of some of those new characters that would be possibly good, let's go ahead and talk about a few different things. Now, I'm on, I believe, the wrong thing here, but what we do want to talk about first is, or actually, no, I am on the right thing. Never mind, I'm doing it correct. Okay, so the first thing we want to talk about here is the new collaboration benefits overview that Star Rail on the official Hoyo page kind of actually gave us. So a little bit more into kind of this idea. We have Archer, who it states here, you can log in to claim the limited 5-star character Archer, the Hunt Quantums, who's going to be a Hunt Quantum unit. The event time period is going to be from 7/11, so July 11th, over till the end of version 3.6. The event details state that during the event, Trailblazers can log into the game to claim the limited 5-star character Archer and materials to build him to level 60. By the way, getting just
that's pretty nice.
Materials to level him to 60 is also really cool. They kind of just added that in there, but that's actually really, really good and nice.
Yeah, and actually, I've been pre-farming him on the entire level 1 to 80. So now I'm gonna have all these extra hunt materials, which, hey, just save those on for the next hunt character I get just somewhere down the line. But that is nice for people who haven't pre-farmed or whatever. Maybe you didn't even know that Archer was free or new to the game, whatever the case may be. That's helpful. And maybe if you're starting to pre-farm just about now hey, I only have to do from 60 to 80. So you can do the math on that. We won't do it here, but that'll help out, save some of your Trailblaze power for maybe getting his relics or doing his, light cone or something like that, right? So that's going to be nice. But looking ahead, this is the next thing. I know some people, at least we've seen in some Discord communities and stuff like that, there's been some confusion. Maybe there's some confusion out there on Reddit too. I haven't looked at Reddit. I don't know what it looks like on other platforms, but at least within Discord, some people thought that the light cone, well, let's read it first, and then we can. I was about to say,
let's go ahead and read this first.
Yeah,
because
so it states right under the light cone. Yeah, it is weird. So spend Star Rail special passes to claim the collaboration exclusive 5-star light cone, the Hell Where Ideals Burn, Archer's light cone. So you spend some passes, you can get the light cone for free, essentially. When does this start? After the version 3.4 update on July 2nd, all the way up to August 13th when it ends. The event details state that during the event, Trailblazers who spend 200 Star Rail special passes, the limited pull currency, in any version 3.4 warp event can claim the limited 5-star light cone, the Hell Where Ideals Burn, the Hunt light cone, after the collaboration warp begins on July 11th at 12 server time. All warp events in version 3.4 share the accumulated total of Star Rail special pass uses. So
if I could say something,
yeah, I'll let you take this.
Yeah, because I had brought this to you as an idea, and you had to kind of read through it as well, because how I read it first when I had looked at this, and I'm glad I asked you about this to make sure I wasn't going crazy. The way that it states this first, obviously log in, you'll get a free Archer. It's probably like an overtime period thing, possibly, or maybe they'll just straight up give them to us. Either way, that's not what we're talking about here.
Like in the mail, like
maybe he'll just drop in the mail, or maybe we have to do something. I have no clue. But either way, looking at the light cone. So we had someone in our Discord community as well, kind of to give us some extra information from somebody from, I believe, a different Telegram or something, whatever it was. The idea, though, was that we had this idea, because how I read this at first, because I had seen this earlier today, or yesterday, or whenever this dropped, I kind of popped up on my notification, which I never usually look at the notifications. For some odd reason, I looked at this one. It stated this, it looked like this. My initial thought was, at the beginning of 3.4, so whenever Finon drops and all this other stuff, right? These banners, the Fate banners, are not going to drop next week. They're going to drop about 10 days after. So they're not dropping the 2nd with everything else. They're going to drop the 11th. And we'll talk about the banners as well with Fate later, and I'll show you how and where it states that specifically from their, Hoyoverse and Honkai Star Rail specific actual Twitter. But how I read that initially in my brain was, okay, I have the beginning of this version until they drop. I have basically the entire time period until 3.6 ends, until I can get this thing, or 8.13, whenever that is. So I have all this time period to actually use up this idea and get this time period. Which means if I do polls before the Fate banners go up, I'll be fine. It'll be accumulated. It'll be those pulls that I do for Finon or whatever, or whoever else is going to be, pairing with him, which we'll talk about later. Whatever those pulls are still going to be calculated towards the 200 pulls you need to get this Lycon for free. Then someone in our Discord just threw something out there of just information they had gotten, and someone had said that do not do your pulls until the Fate banner has dropped, because they won't count for the new thing. And like I asked Riff because I was like, okay, well, I guess this is a new thing. So then I had you read it, and you were like, well, no, how it reads is this way. And I was like, okay, am I going crazy or am I not going crazy? So
yeah, you didn't give me your opinion, so I wasn't like seeing if I agreed with it. I was going into this fresh to be like, what is my interpretation?
And
this is kind of up for interpretation.
Anything. Exactly. That's why I brought it to you first, to see what you would say first. So break it down. I guess break down the wording for us a little bit as well.
Yeah, so just for clarification, for those maybe listening and not watching, version 3.4 for Star Rail starts on July 2nd. That's 3.4. That's when Finon becomes available, and the other characters he's running with, which once again we'll get to that. That's when 3.4 starts, July 2nd. The Fate collab, the Fate banners, Archer, Saber, all of that doesn't start on July 2nd. At the beginning of 3.4, it starts on July 11th. So just want that clarification for people listening so they can be like, oh, okay, I follow that so far. So the issue here is that Archer's light cone, so once again, Archer is available July 11th, not July 2nd. That's when he's given for free later. The light cone, though, says that you can spend passes starting on July 2nd. That's the event period after the version 3.4 update on July 2nd. So once again, going through the event details slowly, it says that during the event, Trailblazers who spend 200 Star Rail special passes in any version 3.4 warp, that includes Finon, that includes the other characters starting on July 2nd, right? Once they do that, they can claim the limited 5-star light cone for Archer after the collaboration warp begins on July 11th. So the way I interpreted this is, okay, once July 2nd hits, that's the beginning of 3.4, I can start spending my passes to get Finon if that's what I'm going for, or the other characters, and that will count towards the 200 to get Archer's light cone. It's just not available to claim until July 11th. So if you spend 200 passes day one for Finon, you know that you can get Archer's light cone on July 11th because you've already filled that 200 quota to get it. You just can't claim it until July 11th. You won't be able to claim it the same day on July 2nd if you're pulling as soon as the banners open for Finon and the other characters. That's the way I'm interpreting in it. And I know some other people interpreted it differently, saying don't spend 200 Star Rail passes until July 11th. So I can totally see the confusion there. But the reason I interpret it that way, and this is still up to interpretation because we're not there yet, so don't really see this as this is the way this is right and the other way is wrong, because it is interpretation. This is just so you can agree with me, you can disagree with me, that's fine. I just wanted to kind of make it pretty clear for people listening. And even at the bottom of that whole thing, they stated again in a separate sentence, separate paragraph. I'm reading verbatim. All warp events in version 3.4 share the accumulated total of Star Rail special pass uses. So from that sentence alone, that means July 2nd, that's when 3.4 starts. Any pulls on Finon and the other characters count towards that. So they're trying to also clarify it there.
Yeah, I think maybe they'll possibly be able to come out later and say something again. And I can still see that ending part saying to someone who's looking at it the other way, because I'm trying to be devil's advocate here and look at it both ways. Because how I originally read it was the way you read it. Now I'm fearful, and I'm sure a lot of other people are, and they'll read it like this now. All warp events in version 3.4 share the accumulated total of Star Rail special pass uses as soon as 7/11 hits, and that's with the time period that you're going to start. So as soon as 7/11 hits, then all the banners have everything open, and all warp events can then be used towards this. But you have to wait until 7/11. Like, that's also another way to look at it. So for me personally, and for a lot of people out there, most people in my opinion, unless they've seen this, unless they've thought of it the other way, they're most likely, 90 to 95% of people in my opinion, if they know both ways, are probably just going to wait. I'm going to wait until Star Rail Note says something specifically, hopefully, about this and clarifies a little bit on it. If they don't, I'm probably just going to wait till 7/11 because I am way too scared to drop 200 passes and then Star Rail to basically say,
and then have to
tough
drop
luck.
another 200 just to get
yeah, tough luck, you didn't get it. Go home.
If you want to be safe, go ahead and wait. There's nothing you lose out of doing that because only 10, 11, however many days later that is. It's like 9 days. The worst that you're getting is having to wait 9 days to get your Finon.
That's really
That's really the only loss. You're still going to be able to get everything you were looking for. You don't have to skip something to get this. So that's the good news.
You're not missing out on any endgame. You're not missing out on anything that's really going to be specifically for him. You're not really hurting yourself too much. A lot of the endgame still has a longer time period. It's not putting you in a bad position at all. So I think that this is totally fine to not have a problem with and wait the 9 days. Either way, look at it how you want to look at it. Keep tabs, you know, I don't know, berate the Star Rail page and be like, hey, yo, can someone please say something and make sense of this, please, a little bit more. Let us know what your thoughts are down in the comments. If you guys said, well, no, they said this or something like that, if we haven't seen anything. Once again, we're making this a little bit sooner before the actual kind of time period has started. So by the time this video is out, maybe they said something, but at least for us right now, it's not too specific on its answers. Anyway, that's the idea with this specific idea of looking at how he's done and how this works. So that's the idea with this specifically. Let's go a little bit further and talk about some of the other things, and like we've talked about, which is looking at the specific banners. So the specific
I can imagine some people like, can you just, what are the banners? You've been alluding to it. What are the banners? What are the characters?
Yeah, literally, like, okay, guys, shut up, stop talking. So we have Finon, obviously, who's going to be in the first phase, him and his light cone. And then also for the 4 stars that are going to be on this banner, it is going to be Tingyun. It is going to be March 7th, the shield version of her. And it is going to be Yukong.
Yeah, okay.
So that's how it is.
I mean,
not terrible, not great.
I mean, Tingyun's still okay.
Tingyun's a pretty good one.
Attack buff.
March 7th, good shield. And Yukong has some okay here and there stuff, I guess. But that's the idea. Outside of this, the next thing that we have, or the other character, sorry, on the other banners, is going to be the 3 reruns we're going to have is Tribi, same 4 stars, Sunday, same 4 stars, and Sparkle. So 3 technically different Harmony units, all for Finon to be thrown up here. So first phase looks pretty strong, pretty stacked, and definitely a little bit interesting on what we have here.
I think for a lot of people, obviously the Finon wanters and diehards going after Finon by getting his light cone. The thing with like rerunning 3 Harmony, and yes, Sparkle is like sometimes, you know, worse than Tribi and Sunday. Like she was power crept by Sunday, technically, right? Thing is, with Archer being given for free and also having already looked at his kit and everything, and it looking
Sparkle's
like
really
Sparkle actually being maybe better than Sunday. I don't want to upset people by saying that.
Quantum. Yeah.
He's very, very skill point hungry, and Sparkle is like perfect for him with that specifically. It makes too much sense. So like people who already have Sparkle, go for it. Awesome. I'm not saying you have to get Sparkle because you're gonna get Archer for free. Like I'm not saying that by all means. Because Tribi and Sunday are still overall better value than Sparkle. That is true. So, and this is a lot too, because for people, I'll just, like me, myself, I don't have Tribi, I don't have Sunday. I want both of them because almost every good DPS in the game at this point in time wants Tribi and or Sunday, and I don't have either. I want both for all of my DPSs. Tribi is just really good for the Herda and Axa, really any team, and Sunday's the same thing for any hyper carry kind of team, which I have an Axa and I like to use him as a hyper carry, and sometimes I'll use him with the Herda, but I really just like his hyper carry form, and I know that Sunday would be like a really great pull for that. I've just been using Sparkle until that point, so it's a lot to think about for people who don't have Sunday. This being his first rerun, really great character to pick up, and same thing with Tribi. Like, if you don't have either one, maybe think about which one you want to go for based on the DPSs or teams you have on your account. Kind of figure out which one makes more sense, because honestly, both are really good. But
yeah,
if you want a more generalist option, probably Tribi, because she's a little bit more broad. Like she can be used for almost any team. Sunday's a little bit more specific to hyper carry teams. Not to say that he can't be used in the other teams, but like using Sunday with, let's say, the Herda, Tribi might still be better, because if you're using the Herda, you're usually using another Erudition character, whoever that may be, and Tribi will help buff both of them, whereas Sunday is only helping out the Herda or the other character you're using. You kind of have to pick and choose there. So you can kind of see what I'm getting at. Otherwise, both great characters.
Yeah, I think phase 1's going to be rough. Never mind, we jump over to phase 2, and now with phase 2, we have Firefly, Jingliu, and Blade all being the characters that are going to be here. Now, here's what's interesting about this. If we look at this banner, we have 3 characters to the right that are not playable, if I remember correctly. Once again, if I remember correctly, that are on here for the first phase. This phase warp, we have 3 characters on the left who are playable, and 3 characters on the right who are playable. Now, this might actually... Oh, wait, that's why. Never mind. Hold up. Scratch that. These are light cones. Duh. So, now looking at the next... Okay, hold up. Now looking at the next little bit, which is going to be phase 2, we have Firefly, Jingliu, and Blade. So we have our 4 stars right here. So, you know, not fantastic in the slightest either for this idea of these characters, but at least we have a Firefly rerun, we have a Jingliu rerun, and we have a Blade rerun. Now, what's nice about the Blade rerun is it's kind of an easy skip, considering you can get him as a 50-50 loss on these standard or on the other character banner or whatever, not the standard, the whatever banner. You can get him technically by losing or whatever, so he still is out there as an option, and his light cone is also in the shop. Jingliu, on the other hand, is just another good character, especially with her possible changes that we've talked about last time. In our last GachaCast last week, we talked about the changes she's going to be getting. We also talked about the changes Blade's going to be getting, so it could be another reason why they want to rerun those characters. And then Firefly is just Firefly, another strong, obviously still pretty good character to be using as well. And I think it's just time for her to get her rerun in this aspect as well. I think everybody's going to be focusing so hard on the first half, though. Second half is going to be really difficult for a lot of people to actually pull for. At the same time, 2 of these characters got buffs, so if anything, this is going to be light cone time for people to pick up them.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Light cones for Firefly. A lot of people, I think, are going to be skipping Firefly, considering so many people have grabbed her already and absolutely love her. At the same time, maybe a lot of people still don't have her, and she's still going to be a good banner to pull on. But I think with the stackedness of phase 1, phase 2 is going to be a little difficult to pull on.
Yeah, I think at this point in the game, when it comes to Firefly, she's still good. Don't get me wrong, and I'm not about to diss her if that's where this seems like I'm going. I think most of the pulls on Firefly are going to be people going after E1, E2, and Light Cone, because, like you said, I feel like a lot of people that wanted Firefly already have her, because this is not her first rerun at this point. And there were also other options like Boot Hill and Rappa, and we're just kind of moving away from Break at this point. And Break's still amazing, but we've just moved away from that. The Amphorius meta is just different with Memo Sprites and all of that. And all the new supports are also different. You don't use Tree B or Sunday usually in the Break teams. That's what you use Ruin May for. You use Fugue. It's a different team archetype altogether. And so, since I guess we're moving away from that, people who don't have her probably are like, I wanted her like a year ago, but now I can live without it. I'll just wait for the next fire DPS or something like that. So I feel like it's for the people who have her, considering E1, E2 to kind of keep her relevant, or get the light cone. Like in my case, I'm still using Eon, the standard light cone from the Herta shop. I'm going to be getting her light cone, and maybe that's other people as well. Someone in our Discord is the same story, is getting her light cone.
Could you think that it's also Ruan May, actually, really quick? Do you think about, what about Ruan May? Because didn't she rerun somewhat recently? Do you think a lot of people might be, they grabbed her and now, you know, or maybe in the shop or something as well?
That is true, because she was
so
free.
Maybe Firefly is
it's kind of a
choice,
an urge, like, oh, now that I do have it, maybe someone was like, I was thinking about Firefly a year or a while back, but I'm like, I don't know, I don't have Ruan May either. That's a lot to go after with the new Amphorius meta coming up, or just having started. Maybe I'll just abandon the Break teams, but since Ruan May was free, now they can rethink that and be like, oh, wait a minute, I can actually do that. I'll use Harmony Trailblazer and Ruan May, and then, hey, I don't have Linksha, but I have Gallagher, you know, hey, there you go. That'll work. Yeah, that'll do content, so.
It kind of just brings into a little bit of a different option. That's all. I know with Ruan May being free, it just kind of allows a little bit more options for some people, and kind of being able to use them. All the star fragments we've been getting, or whatever.
And the same thing with Luocha. If they didn't pick Ruan May, they got their Luocha. They can go back to. I know it's an outdated team at this point, but it's still kind of fun, right? You can still totally do it for like Divergent Universe runs, and have a lot of fun with that.
And with the buffs
considering that both. The buffs, yep, that's exactly where I was going. But like you said, though, I think for a lot of people, it's going to be light cones. They're like, yeah, I know Blade's light cones in the shop now, but I don't have that that stellar convergence material that I need to actually claim it, or I don't have the light cone shards. Sorry, not the stellar convergence thing. It's the characters. I don't have the light cone shards. I don't pay for battle pass. But I want Blade's light cone because I pulled him in 1 point whatever, and he's being buffed. Don't have his light cone still, so it's kind of like it makes sense to rerun him here. If Star Rail was gonna rerun these characters, why not here? Like if they don't do it here, it wouldn't make any more sense to do it later because they're getting buffed here. So this makes sense.
Yeah. So at least the banners in and of themselves, we talked about these a lot, so you kind of take it with a grain of salt what you guys want to do. That's what the banners at least look like, and they've been dropped, thankfully. So let us know what you guys are going to be pulling for down below. And talking about more pulling, as you can see here on our screen, we have Saber and we have Archer coming in the fray as well. Now keep in mind, once again, we're getting a free Archer. And if you spend enough, if you have a good 200 pulls about, or if you're going to have about 200 pulls after all of this, you're going to be getting Archer and his Lycon for free. So if you're looking at Eidolons, I would, in my opinion, from what I've seen for Archer has some good, okay Eidolons, but I think grabbing more characters is probably going to be better, and he's a free option. So I really don't think you should be pulling for him. That's just my opinion, because you get a free version of him, and the Eidolons don't seem worth it. Saber, I absolutely love Saber. E0 S1 Saber is absolutely fantastic. I've seen the things. I've looked at a lot of different things, looked at kind of stuff that works with her. In terms of Eidolons, her Eidolons are not good really from what I've seen until you get to about E6. They're just not worth the pulls, like even close. So I think unless you're going for the E6 and you've been saving for the king, you should be waiting a little bit longer. Maybe, either just getting her E0 S1 is totally fine. If you guys are looking to go after Saber, I personally think that getting the Eidolons is actually more hurting rather than helping.
Yeah, just like get support characters afterwards. Go ahead, go pick up the Sunday, because that'll be available, right? We just talked about that. Go pick those characters up and stuff like that.
Exactly. And I do want to say, looking in the background real quick of the other characters, for instance, these light cones, these characters, there's really nothing special about the backgrounds. I want to, and this is really just a fun thing that I kind of saw real quick, and the viewers can kind of see it, or the viewers, you guys can kind of see it a little bit, but we have like a Venturine in the background right here. And then Boot Hill over to the left. I think that way over there, which I believe Rift is blocking, but I think there's ratios over there. And then there's Robin right here under this little swirl. So there's some interesting kind of things that I saw that I was like, huh, okay, that's kind of cool. Like they kind of threw some background characters.
What is this supposed to mean? Yeah.
Yeah, so it was just kind of cool. I was just like, oh, okay, that's cool. Maybe it's just for the connect of the two, throw some Star Rail stuff in there and some, Fate stuff in there to kind of have them as collab. But that's
just
the
a
idea.
marketing thing.
It could just straight up be marketing, or maybe I don't know, maybe I'm looking at something and actually being smart for once. We'll find out, I guess, in the future. But that's the idea. Once again, pulling your attention to this sentence up top right here. The collaboration of Warp will be available for a long time after its launch on 7/11, which is basically going to go until the end of 3.6. I don't know why they didn't say it's just going to be available for a long time.
I know, it's funny. They didn't give the range. It's just like, hey, it's going to be available for a long time.
It'll be here for a while,
guys,
I promise.
Starting this date
no
for a long time. Yeah.
It'll be here for a while, I promise.
Thanks for the ambiguity.
Which is probably because they probably don't or didn't know, because I believe this dropped just a couple of days ago. So they probably
ends
didn't
at
know or don't know
version 3.6, right?
Supposedly,
at least we know that much.
At least, well,
that's 3 whole versions.
At least
all of 3.4. Well,
is going to be ending at 3.6. Getting the Archer for free is going to end at 3.6. That's all that we know in terms of 3.6 content. Is the free Archer is only going to be until the end of 3.6. Could it be the end of 3.6 still? Sure. Could it be longer? Only time's going to tell. Now, in terms of time's going to tell, we got another skin here. And the next skin that we got is for Firefly. Now, Firefly dropped.
Looks really good.
Which I think this is a really kind of cool looking skin. I don't really know why they're doing the schoolgirl outfit again for like the 5,000 times in an anime game, but hey, whatever, I guess. I think Firefly is one of my favorite characters, so I just really like Firefly. I really enjoyed kind of her in the story as well, and I know some people were like, oh yeah, I really want Sam, and then Firefly came up and they were like, ew, but I still liked her as a character. Really cool, really fun character.
It looks like we're going back to Pinnicani or something, like what was it, 2.6 with Rappa, like that's the school. I think it was, I don't remember the name of the school, just Pinnicani. It was like a slightly different. I thought you were just
it looks like that. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna lie. So I was just like, what are you saying?
Guys, what was it called? A Pinnicani and 2.0 or whatever?
I have no clue what school is. But yeah,
I forget right now. I just know Pinnicani. It was
maybe it's
spelled different. Everything.
Maybe if that's the idea, totally. But yeah,
maybe we're getting an event and it's
Maybe
it's
I
not
have zero
free.
clue
The
at this point.
skin's not free, to clarify, but maybe we'll get an event that
Yeah.
makes it kind of make sense. Maybe we won't. I don't know. Maybe they're just like,
Maybe they're just
here's
like,
a schoolgirl
hey,
Firefly
we know
outfit
Firefly
because
is
the
good,
masses
a
were
lot of people
speaking.
like her. Here's a skin because we know it's gonna sell.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it too. I mean, honestly, at this point, it could be any of the things, any of the ideas, but that's at least what we can see here. I'm excited. I don't care. I love Firefly. I'm gonna be getting the skin, so I don't care. If Sam shows up in a high school girl skirt, though, I'm not really sure how I would feel about that.
I would buy that.
I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Every time, just every time I use the ults, the extra attack with their enhanced,
it's always
just
like a
seeing
shredded.
Sam come down in a
It's like him, but it's like the like her shirt is like ripped a little bit because he's just so much bigger, and like the skirt like only like goes up to like half of his thighs as well, so it's just all like barely covering. It would be hilarious. I just think that that's really funny, but probably not gonna happen. I'm not stating
it's gonna be a fan animation on YouTube now. Someone's gonna do it.
Someone's probably already thinking about doing it. So anyways, that's the idea. New skin. We talked about all the banners, went over the 200 polls. Hopefully figure out what you guys want to do. Hopefully Star will also give us a little bit more information before that drops, or maybe when it does drop, give us a little bit. Maybe they'll give us a counter, and if you do a poll,
that would be nice. Kind of like a standard
I might just do like
counter.
a 10 poll because I have more than 200, so I might just do a 10 poll on like a Finon banner to see if that counter maybe goes up, or maybe I have to wait till 7-Eleven. Maybe we'll have to wait and see kind of what that looks like. Hopefully we'll get a counter of some sort, was my thought process, to, you know, kind of go against the idea
I really
of
hope we do, because that would really help solve the confusion. Because if there's not a counter, everyone's gonna be like, so
is it working or not?
Do we pull, like, or do we not?
Yeah.
Because if there's not a counter, like 99% of people are probably just gonna be like, I'm not pulling them because I want to be sure.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I'm gonna be doing.
Not to go back to that topic, that's kind of a big topic for the Star Rail stuff.
Yeah, so we've talked a lot at this point in time about everything that we've seen in Genshin, everything we've seen in the past week, and hopefully we're going to see in the future as well with the next little while. Same thing with Star Rail, kind of going over some very need-to-know things with a lot of the banners that are dropping, lots of new stuff that's going on here, new characters, new endgame, just new events and new banners. There's so much kind of going on with both of these games. Let us know what you guys think about anything and everything down below. Maybe things that we didn't really talk about that you're like, hey, by the way, this is also jumping in. Let us know your thoughts on the different things that we have talked about, you know, giving your thoughts on what you think about the 200 pull idea. What do you think about the event that just dropped? What about, do you think about maybe the new endgame, the Stygian Onslaught that we're going to have? Let us know all of your thoughts down below. And if you guys did enjoy the video, obviously, please go ahead and like and subscribe. If you guys haven't already, go ahead and let us know what your guys' thoughts are down below. And once again, we thank you guys once again for watching another week of the GachaCast. That's everything we've got for this week. So we'll see you guys in the next one.